Okay, today is Zayin Iyar. Today is the 22nd day of the Yom. Today we're learning Sotah Daf Chaf Beis. We left off yesterday, Chaf Beis Amud Aleph on the second line. Come, take a Gemara. See, Yassel. One. Itmar. Yesterday, so we spoke about the Mishnah spoke about the four prushim, the four ascetics, the four guys that are separated from the world, and they make themselves as if they're holy. And there were four different guys. It was the Chassid Shaita, the stupid Chassid. There was the cunning Russia. There was the Isha Prusha, the ascetic woman, and the Makos Prusha, the hits of the ascetics. So Itmar in Russia Urim, which we were learning yesterday, we learned 7 explanations about what a Russia Urim is, and the last explanation was from Ula that he said that it's Shekara V'Shana V'Leishim Mishnah, someone who learned Mishnah, someone who learned Chumash, and he did not go and assist Talmid Chacham, which means that he didn't learn the Gemara, he didn't learn the reasonings behind the different halachas, he didn't have a teacher to teach him that, or he didn't see a Rav Paskening Shilas, he doesn't know how to apply the halacha. So it's he's a Rasha Arun because he thinks he knows the halacha because he learned all the Mishnayos, but he doesn't realize that really without the reasonings behind the halachas and without seeing how they're applied in real life, you can't apply the halacha and you can't pass in a shayla. So says the Gemara, Itmar, we have a statement, a discussion from the Amira. Kara B'Shana, someone learns Mishnayos, and Chumash, Kara is the Kra, which is the Chumash, and Shana is Mishnayos. And he didn't go and assist the Talmud Chacham, Rabbi Lezer Eimer, Hareza Amaretz. Basically, a student who learned all the things that he needs to know, but he didn't see how halacha is applied in real life. So he is considered an Amaretz, meaning that he is paskening shilas, that he's holding himself as a rabbi, but he doesn't really know how to apply Torah from theory to practicality. So he's considered an Amaretz. An Amaretz means an ignoramus. And there's a halachic Amaretz that we speak about in many places in Shas, which is someone that you can't trust for you can't eat in his house because you don't know if he took meiser off of his food, and you don't know if you don't know if his food is pure. So someone who has the lack of care on this level, we consider him an Amaretz. Shmuel bar Nachmani says that this guy Harez a bor. He's not an Amaretz, he's a bor. A bor is worse than an Amaretz because he not only is he ignorant, he's also a very coarse, disgusting person. If you want to talk, you can go out. Rabbi Yanai says Harez a kusi. He's not that he's an Amaretz, not that he's a bor. He's even worse. He's a kusi. A kusi is someone who Yehuda. Could you go out? Do me a favor, go out. Areza Kusi, this is a Kusi. A Kusi was a nation that lived in Eretz Yisrael. They weren't Jewish. And there they came and got attacked by lions. And they said, oh, the reason why we're getting attacked by lions is because we serve a different God than these people. So they all converted to Judaism out of fear of the lions. But then as time went on, they went back to their idolatrous ways. Yehuda, let's go. No, I don't care. They went back to the idolatrous ways. And they weren't acting like Jews, and they also rejected the Torah Shabbat Peh. So it's even worse than that. And the kusi, you're not allowed to eat from his bread, you're not allowed to drink his wine, because in certain times they were considered like goyim. So that's even worse. If a guy who learned the Torah and he didn't serve a Talmud Chacham, so he's able to err in halacha. Meaning he's so close, yet he's so far. Sometimes when we're so close to something, he learned the Chumash, he learned the Mishnayos, he knows much more than a regular person, but since he's missing that last step, it puts him down a few levels. Rav Acha bar Yaakov says, Hareza Mogai, she is a sorcerer. Why? Because just like a sorcerer just does magic for fake, he doesn't, we're talking about a magician we're going to have later in the daf, real magicians. But today we have a fake magician, a guy who just does optical illusions. So too, this guy is an optical illusion. He looks like a big Rav, but really he is not, doesn't know how to fly halacha correctly. Yossi, open up your Gemara. Yossi, you're following along? The other Yossi. Okay. Amar Rav Nachman Bar Yaakov. Rav Nachman Bar Yaakov says that Mistabra Rav Acha Bar Yaakov. It makes sense to say like Rav Acha Bar Yaakov, who said that he's a Magosh, this magician, the Amri Inchi, because people say Rotin Magoisha V'Loyada Mayomar, that person who this Magosh, this sorcerer, he speaks and he doesn't know what he's saying, and so too Tanitana V'Loyadi Mayomar Chav Beis Amar Aleph, and so too a Tana, a guy who's teaching Mishnayos, he's talking and he doesn't know what he's talking about because he didn't apply it to real life. He only knows the theoretical. Kan Rabbanan, the Chachamim now taught in the Braisa. Once we mentioned the different things that this guy is, that this Talmud Shalei Yaleira, the Karav Shalei Shemish Talmid Chachamim is, and we mentioned one of the things is that he's an Amaretz. So now we're talking about an Amaretz. Son of Rabbanan, Ezu Amaretz. What is an Amaretz? This nation of the land. That's the physical. That's the literal interpretation. But it means someone who's an ignorant person, and halacha doesn't trust him in certain things. So what's an Amaretz? How do you define an Amaretz? So the answer is anyone who doesn't read Shema in the morning and in the evening, together with his blessings. Divrei Rav Meir. This is the opinion of Rabbi Meir. Why does Rabbi Meir say that if a guy doesn't know how to say Shema in the morning and the night, he is an Amaretz? It's very simple. If you don't know how to read Shema, which is the most basic text in Judaism, you probably don't know anything else in Judaism, and we probably can't trust you that you keep halacha. So that is Rab Meir's opinion. V'chachamim say, it's anyone that doesn't put on tefillin. They say that it's not something that's an intellectual thing, not just intellectual. He can even know Torah, but if he doesn't put on tefillin in practice, he's in ignoramus. Or you could say, Yehuda, stop talking. Or you could say that we're talking about since. So the Chachamim say that it's anyone who doesn't put on tefillin, because someone who doesn't put on tefillin, either it means that he doesn't keep the mitzvahs. Tefillin is one of the basic mitzvahs that a person has to do every day, or it means that the guy, even if they're saying that Reb Meir says that it's someone who doesn't even know how to read Kriya Shema. They say he can know how to read Kriya Shema, but if he doesn't put on tefillin, it means that he doesn't know what Shema means. He doesn't know the meaning of Shema. In Shema, it says that you need to put on tefillin. So he's smart enough to say the words of Shema, but he's not smart enough to figure out that in Shema it says that you should put on tefillin. Ben Azai says that kol she'ein leit tzitzis b'migdal. It's someone that has a four-cornered garment that doesn't have tzitzis. Also, for the same reason, a guy reads Shema, he doesn't know what he's talking about. He doesn't realize that in Shema it says that you need to attach tzitzis to your garments. Rabbi Yonasan ben Yosef Amar, Rabbi Yonasan the son of Yosef says, kol sheyesh leibonim, anyone that has sons, ve'enem megadlan l'mod Torah, and he doesn't teach them, he doesn't raise them to learn Torah. He doesn't teach his children the value of learning Torah. He doesn't send them to school to learn Torah. And over there, it shows that he doesn't care for Torah enough to pass it on to the next generation, which is also another problem. Plus, it means that he doesn't know what he's talking about in Shema. In Shema, it says that you have to teach your children Torah, and he doesn't realize that that's what it says in Shema, even though he knows how to say Shema. Now, back to our topic. The others say that even if this guy learns Chumash and he learns Mishnayos, but he didn't serve Talmidei Chachamim, Zehu Amaretz. He is considered an Amaretz. So he's an Amaretz if he learned Chumash and Mishnayos, but he didn't serve Talmidei Chachamim. He doesn't know how halacha is applied practically. Now, what happens if Kara V'Leishana, if he only knows Chumash but not Mishnayos? So he's a bor. He's a bor. A bor is this level of a person who's not smart. He's an ignoramus, and he's also a coarse person. Lo Kara V'Leishana, if he didn't learn not Chumash and not Mishnayos, Allah V'Akasav he's so low that the Torah says about him in Yirmiyah, Perek Lamed Aleph, V'Zarati es Beis Yisrael, that I will plant the children of Israel as Beis Yehuda and the house of Yehuda, the house of Yisrael and the house of Yehuda, Zera Adam, the seed of man, V'Zera Behema, and the seed of animals. Because my love of people over animals is that they have intellect, they have wisdom. If a person doesn't utilize his intellect, he's like an animal. Because what's the my love him over an animal if he doesn't use his intellect for anything? Not even for Chumash, not for Mishnah. Okay. Now, on the same topic, we're going to darshan a pasuk in Mishlei. Pasuk in Mishlei, Perek Chavdal says like this: Yirah es Hashem b'ni, my son, fear Hashem v'melech and the king, v'im shoynim al tisarav, and do not mix yourself with the shoynim. The word shoynim means repeaters. But what's going on? So Amar Rabbi Yitzchak says that elu shoynim halachos. These people, the shoynim in the pasuk that the father is telling his son not to mix with, is people that teach halacha, that repeat halachas. So pshita, obviously, mao the tema. What meaning? What else would shoynim mean if not for teachers of halacha? Mao the tema shoynim bechet. You might think that it means people that repeat in their sins, and Mishle is saying that don't mix yourself with people that repeat their sins. Ravuna, like Ravuna said, that the Amar Ravuna Kevan Sha'avar Adam Avera. Once a person does an Avera Vishonaba and he does it again, person does it a few times, person repeats his Avera, so Hutra like it's permitted for him. It doesn't mean that it's permitted for him. It means that it makes itself as if it's permitted. It's not like usually when a person does an Avera, there's some sort of not consequence. It's some sort of feeling of guilt or a feeling of there's a certain feeling inside of him that's saying maybe I shouldn't be doing this. Once a person does an Avera a few times, it just becomes like another regular activity that he does. So Kamash Valon, so he teach us. So comes the Rabbi Yitzchak to teach you that this pasuk in Mishlei is not talking about that. It's talking specifically about the people that taught Mishnayos. And again, we're going with this thing that it's someone who learned the Mishnayos, but he only learns Mishnayos. He doesn't go after that. He just repeats the Mishnayos. There was a job that of people in the olden days called a Tana. Tana means a guy that would go to yeshivas and just teach Mishnayos because they had wonderful memories and they would repeat all the Mishnayos and all the Brises. So one of these guys, you don't mix around with him because he obviously meaning if he wasn't Mishamash Talmidei Chacham, if he doesn't see how halacha is applied practically. Okay. Tana, we learned in a brisa that hatanoim, that those that repeat the Mishnayos and the Brises, the Tanoim mevale olam, they are ruining the world. Says the Gemara, mavle olam salkadaita. They're ruining the world. How could you say such a thing that the Tanoim are ruining the world? So Amar Ravina says that what are we talking about? Shemayr and halacha mitech Mishnah. And how do they ruin the world? Because they paskin based off a Mishnah. You can't paskin based off a Mishnah. You have to know the Gemara. You have to know the reasonings behind it. So they paskin based off a Mishnah, and therefore they are making mistakes. They're telling people the wrong halacha. We also have a brisa that says this. Amar Rabbi Yeshua says another brisa. Basically, someone had said that the Tanoim are mavle elam, the Tanoim are ruining the world. So Rabbi Yeshua said, "Is it true? Are they taka ruining the world? It's not true. Regular Tanoim that aren't paskening based off their Mishnah, someone who's learning the Mishnayos, he is someone who settles the world. He settles the world. He makes the world a better place. Mendel, quiet. Shenemar, like it says in the pasuk, halichos olam loy, the ways of the world are his, and we say al tikra halichos al halachos, that the halachos olam loy, the someone who learns halacha every day, olam loy, he has the share of the world to come, and the whole world is functioning because of it. So what are we talking about? What's the Tanoim that are mavle the Tanoim that are ruining the world? So Elosh, Shamayr halacha mitech Mishnah, and there are people that teach halacha is based off of the Mishnayos. Okay, I want everyone to open up their Gemaras now, following along. We're towards the bottom of Chav Beis Amud Aleph, Isha Prusha. We're by the two dots. Isha Prusha. Isha Prusha v'chulu. A woman who's separated, an overly righteous woman. She was one of the people that are ruining the world. On Rabbanon, we learned in a brisa besula tzal yonis, a virgin who is praying all the time, ve'almana shevavis, and a widow who is neighborly, who's visiting her neighbors all day, v'katan shaleikol lechadashav, and a fetus who hasn't finished his months, a baby who didn't come to term yet. Harei elu mavle olam. These three guys are ruining the world. Amy, is that true? Says the Gemara. It's not true. This Almana Shevavis and the Basilat Salyanis, they're not ruining the world. Rabbi Yechanan one time said that Lamadru Yiras Chet mi Basila. We learned Yiras Chet, fear of sin, from a virgin, from a young girl. The Kibul Schar, and we learn the way that the Eibishter pays us reward. Me Almana, from a certain widow. Yiras Chet mi Basila. We learned fear of sin from a Basila. The Rabbi Yechanan Shamalahi Basila. What happened? Rabbi Yechanan one time heard this young woman, the Nafla Appa, she was falling on her face, davening. Amran, she said, Rebbeinu Shalayla, master of the world, Barasa Gan Eden, you created Gan Eden. Barasa Gehenim, and you created Gehenim. Barasa Tzadikim, you created Tzadikim, Barasa Rishoim, and you created the wicked. Yehi Ratzon Milfanecha, may it be the will of you, Shalom Yikashlu bi b'nei Adam, that no one should sin on account of me. She was a girl who was very beautiful, and not only was she righteous for herself, she had such a fear of sin, that she asked Hashem to make sure that no one else sins on account of her. So you see this Besula Tzalyanis, she was a young girl who was praying, and it's a great thing. Rabbi Yochanan thought that it was a great thing. And you have this story of Kibbutz Schar Almana getting reward from which we learned from a widow. That he Almana, there was one time a widow that Havai Be Knishta B'Shivusa, that she had a shul in her own neighborhood. However, Kol Yoma, every single day, Havas Asya Matla Be Midrashay Rabbi Yochanan. She would go not to her shul, which was near her house. She would go travel further to Rabbi Yochanan's base medrash and daven over there. So Amar La, Rabbi Yochanan one time asked her, Biti, my daughter, is there not a shul in your neighborhood? So Amar Le, she said back to him, Rabbi, my teacher, this is how Jews answer questions with another question. He said, do I not receive a reward for my steps? Meaning she was saying that she knew that the Eibishter rewards people for doing mitzvahs, and the more effort you put in, the more reward you get. So she said that I have a shul right next to my house, but I also have a shul that's a further walk away on the other side of town. And if I walk there, I'll get a bigger reward. And Rabbi Yochanan was very inspired by that. And he said that we learn Kibbutz Schar, we learn how much reward the Eibishter gives from this Almana who decided that just by walking further, she's going to get a bigger reward. So what's the Shaila? The Shaila is, how could you say that a Besula Tzalyanis, this Besula that's davening, and the Almana who is neighborly, is ruining the world? We just found two stories, one of a Besula, one of an Almana, and they were great people. Rabbi Yochanan was very impressed with them. So says the Gemara, Kika Amar, when do we say that these guys are ruining the world? Kigoin Yuchni Basra TV. It's a woman who's like Yuchni Basra TV. Who was Yuchni Basra TV? So Rashi fills us in. She was a widow, and she was a machshefa. She was a sorceress. And what happened was, whenever it came time for a woman to give birth in her city, she would do sorcery. She would put some contraptions together to make sure that the woman would have a very tough time giving birth, that the baby wouldn't come out. And the woman would be in much pain trying to give birth. Then Yuchni would go over to the lady's house and say, listen, I heard you're having trouble giving birth. Do you want me to daven for you? That you should give birth easier. And they would say, yeah, please go daven for us. So she would go back to her house, she would take out the kishuf, and then the baby would be born. So everyone thought that she's this very holy woman who's doing miracles, that she says, let me daven for you. And a few minutes later, the baby would come out. Until one day she did her kishuf thing. Then she went to go to the woman's house to ask if they want her to pray for them. And there was a worker who was working in her house, and she didn't realize she left the guy in her house. And the guy hears that he hears some rattling going on in a vessel in one of the closets. He opens it up and he sees what's going on. He sees something rattling inside the vessel of sorcery, just like a baby is thrashing to try to get out of the womb. And that's what and then he took it out, and the baby came out right away before before Yuchni was even able to say anything. And because of that whole story, they realized that she was a machsheva, they realized that she was a sorceress, and she lost her license to pray for people.
No, they killed her.
I don't think they killed her. It doesn't say that over here. And good. So someone who's like that, this Yuchni Basra TV, a Besula Talyanos, a Besula that's davening, meaning she's pretending to be holy because she's always davening, but really under the surface, there's bad things going on. Or an almana who's shevavis, she's neighborly, she's jumping around to her friends' houses, but really under the surface, meaning she's hiding something. Those people are destroying the world, as we'll see more details later about why this is destroying the world, because they're ingenuous people. So now that was two things in the right. So the third thing was a katan shleikol lechadash. Remember the fetus that never came to term. So my katan shleikol lechadash. What does it mean? A katan, a child that his months didn't finish, a fetus that didn't come to term. So hacha targimu. This is how they translated it. Zeh talmid chacham, talking about a talmid chacham amavayit berabbaisav that kicks his teachers, that doesn't treat his teachers with respect. Rabbi Abba says, it's talking about a talmid chacham that didn't receive smicha. He didn't get to the level of being able to paskin halachas, not smicha. I take that back. We're going to see later what it means. Someone who didn't reach the level where he's able to paskin halachas, and he's paskining. So there he's called a chacham amavat b'rabbaisav, a chacham that's kicking his teachers. The Amar Rabbo said Amar Rav Huna in the name of Rav Huna, that Amar Rav in the name of Rav, What's the meaning of the pasuk in Mishlei, which is talking about a prostitute? That's the shot in the pasuk. She has made many corpses fall. And all those that she killed were very mighty. So what's that pasuk referring to? She caused many corpses to fall, meaning she killed many. That's talking about a Talmud Chacham that he didn't get to the level where he's able to teach halachas yet, to paskin shaylas yet, and he is paskening. And all of those that he. Okay, so why is it called? Why is that Kiram Chalalam Pila? Because the word Hepila means to fall. She means that she was killing them. Another explanation for Hepila could be a miscarriage. A miscarriage is someone who was developing in the mother's womb and then came out before it came to term. So the same thing. This Talmud Chacham, he is developing. He was learning Torah, but he didn't get to the full maturity of being able to get to the stage where he's able to paskin, and he's paskening. So that's considered like a nafil, like a what's it called? Like a miscarriage. And all of those that she killed are very strong. That's talking about a Talmud Chacham that is able to paskin and he doesn't paskin. He says, I don't want to paskin, it's too complicated for me, even though he's able to. Why? Because atzumim, which means strong, mighty, it also means closed up, that he's closing himself up. Okay. So basically, when it comes to people that are paskening shilas, they have to be very, very careful. If they're not at that level yet, they're not allowed to. If they're already at that level, they have to. Ba'ad kama, and when, how much do you have to wait in order to be able to pasken shilas? Ad arba'in shnin. It has to be 40 years. Either you have to be 40 years old. Yeah, you have to be 40 years old because person gets this level of bina when he's 40 years old that he's able to pasken shilas. The Gemara says, "Any, is that true? That you have to be 40 years old to pasken?" Rabba, this great Amira, or another gear says that it was Rava. He used to paskin shilas, and what's the problem? The problem was that he died when he was 40 years old, so it's not possible for him to be 40 years old. So how did he paskin anything? Says the Gemara B'Shavin. There's a difference when the guy is equal to the biggest chacham in the city. So there he's able to. So Rabba was a very, very smart man, and he was even younger. He was equal or even greater than the other greatest chacham in the city. So he was allowed to paskin. Okay. Next, the fourth guy that is ruining the world is Makais Prushin, someone who the hits of the Prushim, these guys that are overly righteous. Tan Rabbanan, the Brisa taught that Shiva Prushin, there are 7 kinds of Prushin. By the way, we're going to have a different type of Prushin in a positive sense later on this exact Amud. But now we have 7 guys that are Prushim, which is a false level of piety. 7 of them. Parush Shichmi, the Parush of Shechem. Parush Nakafi, the Parush of knocking. Parush Kizoi, the Parush of bloodletting. Parush Meduchia, the Parush that is similar to a mortar. A mortar is some sort of device that they use to crush spices, that is like a bowl and a stick. You smash the stick into the bowl. Parush Machevasi Ves, and the Parush of what is my obligation and I will fulfill it. Parush Mayava, the Parush of love, and Parush Meir, the Parush of fear. And these 7 guys are terrible people, and they are ruining the world. So what do these 7 things do? What do these things mean? So Parush Shichmi, someone who is a Parush of Shechem, Zeho Esa Maisa Shechem. It's someone that acts like Shechem. What did Shechem do? Shechem did, if you know the story in Parshas Vayishlach with when Yaakov was in Shechem, so this guy, Shechem was the prince of the city of Shechem, and he raped Dinah and Yaakov's daughter, and the brothers came and they got very upset. And they made a deal with the city of Shechem. They said, "Listen, we'll marry into you guys, and we'll get along well if you guys all get a bris. If you all the males in the city circumcise themselves." So they all circumcised themselves, and 3 days later, they were all weak. Yaakov's sons, Shimon and Levi, came and killed out the whole city of Shechem. But the Maisa Shechem, the actions of Shechem, is someone that would get a bris for his ulterior motives, which means he's not getting a bris for the right reasons. He's not getting a bris because he wants to connect to Hashem. He's getting a bris because he wants to marry Yaakov's daughter, right? And they said, we can only marry into you if you all have brisen. So the same thing, Ma'aseh Shechem is someone that does a holy thing, but for his own purposes, for his own altruistic reasons. Not altruistic. Person who does it for his own ulterior motives. Then Parush Nakafi, the Parush of knocking. What does that mean? Mankif Esraglav. It's someone that knocks his feet, that he walks, he sort of hobbles along the path. He doesn't pick up his feet because he's pretending to be very holy. And he knocks his toes into the rocks because his feet don't even leave the ground. Then you have parush kizoi, the parush of bloodletting. What kind of parush is letting blood out? So Amar Rav Nachman Bar Yitzchak, Rav Nachman Bar Yitzchak says Zeh hamakis dam laksal. It's someone that's letting blood onto the walls, because the guy who's pretending to be very holy, so he walks around with his eyes closed because he doesn't want to look at girls, and he knocks into walls, and he's gonna hit his head in the wall, and he's gonna bleed. So that's a parush that lets out his blood. Parush meduchia, the parush of the mortar or of the pestle. It's this thing that they would use to crush the spices. So Amar Rabba Bar Shila says the mishapa ki meduchia. It's someone who's walking around bent down like a mortar. He thinks that he's so holy that he's trying to be false humility, that he bends down, and that's also a big problem. Then you have parush mechayvasi ve'esena, the parush of what is my obligation and I shall do it. So the Gemara says, what are you talking about? Why is that a bad thing? Hamal Yusa. It's a good thing. The guy's saying, what do I need to do? And let me do it. Let me do whatever is necessary. Hamal Yusahi. So Ella, so the Gemara teaches the Omar, what he doesn't say what's my obligation and I should do it. He says, Machayvasi su ve'esena. You have to add this one word in the middle. What else is my obligation? What further is there for me to do that I should do it? Meaning he's saying a rhetorical question. What else is there for me to do that I haven't done already? Let me do it. But he's implying that he's done everything right. He has nothing to work on, nothing to improve. And someone who does that, someone who considers himself as if he has nothing to improve, that is mavle olam. That is someone who is ruining the world, because we always have to be going up in levels. We have to always be jumping up in our avodas Hashem. Then parush may have a parush b'yiro. Then the Brisa said that someone who's a parush because of love, or a parush because of fear. That's obviously, so the parush of ava and yira means love of reward. He does mitzvahs because he loves the reward, and parush v'yira is someone that doesn't do averis because he is scared of the punishment. So it said that they are ruining the world. So 1 second. Abaye and Rava said to the guy who was teaching them the Brisa, who was repeating this Brisa in the Yeshiva, he said, don't teach in the Brisa someone that is a parush because he loves reward or because he's afraid of punishment. Why? The Amar Rav Yehuda said in the name of Rav that a person should always do Torah mitzvahs, even if it's not for the right reason, even if it's for the motives of reward or for punishment, even if it's not purely to serve Hashem. Because through doing something not for the right reasons, it'll come, he'll get used to it, and eventually he'll be doing it for the right reasons, for the altruistic motives. Rav Nachman said, the mitamra, that which is hidden, people's thoughts are hidden from everyone else. They're all hidden. Uda migalia, that which is revealed, people's actions, migalia, is revealed, and everyone knows about it. However, Bey Dina Rabba, the great Bezdin, the Bezdin of the Eibush there, Lispara is going to punish Mehani from those the Chafu Gunde that are wrapping themselves in cloaks. What are we referring to? We're referring to people that wore black cloaks, and it was a sign of mourning, black cloaks. And these guys used to walk around all day in black cloaks to show that they were mourning for Yerushalayim. They were trying to show that they were holy, but really, in the inside, under those black cloaks, they weren't that holy. So Rav Nachman Yitzchak says that you can be hiding whatever you want from people, but the Eibishter knows everything, and he knows all of your motives, and good. Now we have a story. Amar lo Yanai Malka le Yanai was one of the kings of the Chashmonaim. He lived in the days of the second Beis Hamikdash. He was one of the kings of the Jews. After the Chashmonaim won over in the story of Hanukkah, so the Chashmonaim family had kings, and Yanai was one of the kings, and he was a terrible guy. He was a very, very horrible king. Wicked man. And he killed out all the Chachamim because he was a tzduki. He didn't believe in Torah Shebaal Peh. At that time, so you have to give you context. At that time in Judaism, there was different groups. There was the Prushim and the Tzdukim and the Baitusim. There was Prushim, which were, Parush means separated. It means that they were separated from the rest of the Jewish people, not in the bad way that we were talking about for the last half and a half. Parush meaning that they were separated, that they were still the religious Jews. They were the Jews that we have today. Us, we would have been Prushim back then. There were people that believed in the Torah Shebaal Peh, they believed in the Chachamim, and they accepted the halacha like the Chachamim. Then you had the Tzdukim, where they were Talmidim of a guy called Tzaddik, and he left the way of the Torah Shebaal Peh. He denounced the Torah Shebaal Peh, and he said, we're only keeping Torah Shebaal. So the Torah didn't make any sense to them. If you read just the simple halachas, you don't exactly know what to do, because a lot of the halacha relies on the oral tradition that we got from Moshe Rabbeinu, but they didn't believe in Torah Shebaal Peh. Another sector was the Baitusim. Kids are different chevra. So it became very popular back then to become a tzduki. So King Yanai was a tzduki, and he tells his wife that so Yanai killed out all the Prushim. He only left a few of the guys alive. He killed them all out, and he was telling his wife. His wife was complaining to him. She said, "You killed out all the Prushim. Now, after you die, the Prushim are going to come after me. They're going to retaliate because you were so mean to them." So it says Yanai to his wife, "Al tisyari min Prushin. Don't be afraid of the Prushim." Why? Because the Prushim are genuine people and they are righteous people. And he was speaking in an honest way. The Prushim, even though I'm against the Prushim and I killed out all the Prushim, but at the end of the day, they're people that have morals and they're not going to come after you because of sins that I committed. And he says, don't fear those that are not Prushim. Don't fear the Tzdukim because they're my buddies. So you don't have to be afraid of them. Who should you be afraid of? Ella minatzvu. And you have to be afraid of those that are colored. The ones that are colored means that they colored themselves. In the inside, they're not Prushim. In the inside, they're empty, but they pretend to be Prushim. They pretend to be religious Jews. Shadayim and the Prushim, they look like Prushim, so it's very easy to get confused by them. However, Shemase and Kemase Zimri, their actions are like the actions of Zimri. Zimri was the Nasi of Shevet Shimon in the 40th year of the Eden in the desert. And he went and took a Midiani woman and he brought her into the camp and took her into his tent and he was having a relation with her in front of all the Jewish nation and there was a plague going on. He did this terrible, terrible thing. But they asked for a reward like Pinchas. Pinchas was the one in that story who went and killed Zimri and he stopped the plague. So he was the righteous guy. He was the hero of the story and Zimri was the villain of the story. So it's like a play on, it's like a cute way of saying that the inside they're empty and they pretend to be these holy guys. So they do the actions of Zimri. They're wicked people, but they seek reward like Pinchas because they think that they are very, okay. Next Mishnah, Masnissen. Chaf Beis Amud Beis. Shimon says, "Ein zchus toila b'mayim amorim." There's no zchus in the Sotah waters. Zchus doesn't work. The last Mishnah that we learned on Daf Chaf said that it could go for 1 year, for 2 years, for 3 years. Reb Shimon says there's no zchus whatsoever. Merit with the Sotah waters does not exist. Why? If you say that there's zchus, that there is merit that could last for the Sotah. If she drinks the Sotah waters, if she has these merits, you're dimming the waters, you're dimming the power of the waters before anyone that wants to drink. We're trying to get them to not drink the water because we don't want them to die. But if there's chus and they see their friends that drink the Sotah waters and they see that they were alive for another 3 years, you're dimming the thing. They're going to say it's not so powerful. We don't care to drink it, but we want them to not drink it because we don't want them to die. We don't want to erase Hashem's name. So you're dimming the powers and people are not going to be scared to drink the waters. And not only that, even worse, you're setting out a bad name for those that were talking innocent, women that were innocent that drank the waters and they didn't die. People are going to say, oh, the reason why they didn't die is because they have a zchus, not because they're innocent, but really they are innocent. So Reb Shimon says it doesn't make sense that there should be zchus by the Sotah waters. They're going to say that there were tamei. But they have a zchus. Rabbi says there is zchus by the mayim amorim, but he says I'm going to take care of your issue, Reb Shimon. Reb Shimon, you're saying that if nothing's going to happen to women that drink the Sotah waters because they have a zchus, women are not going to be scared of the Sotah waters, and people are going to say that the women that drank it that didn't die really were defiled. He says I'll take care of that problem. There is chus. However, during that time, she's not going to be giving birth. She's not getting beautiful. Ella, what happens? During that time that the chus is holding out for her, she deteriorates slowly. She's getting worse and worse. And at the end of 1 year or 2 years or 3 years, she's going to die in the same way that she would have died if she wouldn't have had a chus, that the stomach explodes and the thighs collapse. So the same way, she's going to die at the end. So he says, don't be scared that people are not going to be scared of the Sotah waters anymore, or that they're going to say that she was, because if they see that she's misnavna, first of all, they're going to be scared of the Sotah waters. They know that she's going to die. And they know that the woman that isn't misnavna, they know that she is not guilty. Okay. So now the Mishnah talks about the mincha of the Sotah. We already quoted this Mishnah. Nitbeis minchasa for carbon mincha becomes tamei. So if actually kli, if it was before it goes into the first kli shares, the first kli sharis in the base of Mikdash when she brings it in her house in the kfifa mitzvah. You have to put it in a kli sharis from there. If it goes before it goes into the kli sharis, it becomes tamei. So arei kechala menachos. It's like any other mincha v'tipada, and you could redeem it. Why? Like we explained in the beginning of Perek Beis, because it only has kedushas dama. It only has its value as kedusha, but the actual flour isn't holy yet. However, once it gets into the holy vessel, once it goes into the kli sharis, then it gets kedushas haguf. It gets intrinsic holiness. The actual flour is now holy. It's like any other mincha. After it gets intrinsic holiness, but if it gets tamei, it has to be burnt. We're going to continue tomorrow with Daf Gimel. Now, everyone go to